Welcome back my channel. As you know, Indonesia aims for a 5.2% economic growth by 2025, which would greatly benefit its citizens. To reach this goal, the government has several plans in place. However, they must overcome local and international obstacles to succeed. Today's podcasts focus on the Indonesia economy. Stay tuned.
All right, so Indonesia is aiming for this 5.2% economic growth target in 2025. And we've got reports, articles, data, World Bank stuff, government publications, even projections from leading economists. But what does that actually mean for us? Living and working in Indonesia.
Yeah, it's a big number for sure. Breaking it down and seeing how it translates to daily life. I think one of the most interesting things is how the government's plan to hit this target actually directly impacts our spending power and the prices we see at the market.
Okay, so how are they going to do that?
Well, a big focus is on boosting domestic spending. So the idea is when we have more money in our pockets, we're more likely to spend it right, which keeps the economy going strong. And they're serious about this. They even held off on a planned VAT hike to 12%.
VAT, remind me what VAT is again?
Oh, right, value-added tax. Basically, it's an extra charge we pay on most goods and services. So holding off on that increase means we get to keep a little extra cash.
Okay, makes sense. Now, what about all these big infrastructure projects? Like the new capital city, Nusantara. Are those part of the plan too?
Oh, absolutely. Nusantara is a massive project, and it's not just about building a new city. It's about job creation, tons of jobs, construction, engineering, all those supporting industries that pop up around it.
So it's not just concrete and steel, it's livelihoods.
Exactly. And another thing the government's focusing on is actually something that's already a powerhouse in Indonesia's economy. Okay. Micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs.
MSMEs, I feel like we hear about them all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe a lot of us don't realize how important they are.
They're huge. I mean, we're talking 61% of the GDP and a massive 97% of the workforce. Your neighborhood warung, the tailor down the street, even your favorite online shop, they're all part of this.
Oh, wow. So supporting MSMEs is like supporting our community.
Exactly. By giving tax breaks and incentives to these businesses, the government is hoping they'll grow and create even more jobs.
Okay, this is all sounding pretty promising, but what about all this talk about global uncertainty? How does that factor into all of this?
Right. That's the big question. It's where things get a bit more complicated. Because Indonesia might be making moves, but it's not happening in a vacuum. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The global landscape can have a huge impact, especially on everyday Indonesians.
So what are some of the things that could go wrong?
Well, one of the biggest concerns is inflation. You know those chili peppers we were talking about earlier?
Oh, yeah, those are getting expensive.
Exactly. So while inflation in Indonesia is relatively stable now, rising food prices, especially for staples like chili peppers, are really hitting people hard. It directly impacts how far our rupiah can go.
Yeah, if our money isn't going as far, it puts a strain on things. What else should we be worried about?
Another challenge is weak exports. Big economies like China and the US are slowing down a bit. And that could be a problem for Indonesian industries that rely on selling their goods overseas.
So if demand drops, that could mean job losses.
Exactly. And that could have a ripple effect throughout the entire economy, eventually hitting all of our wallets.
So we've got inflation and weak exports.
Yeah.
Anything else out there that could impact Indonesia's growth?
Yeah.
And, their livelihoods?
There are a couple of things. They're a bit more complicated, though. Geopolitical tensions, things like the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel, could have ripple effects on the global economy. And that could impact everything from oil prices to investors being less likely to put money into emerging markets, like Indonesia.
No. Oh, right.
And then there's the US-China trade war. That's a bit like two elephants fighting, and we're the grass.
Yikes. Okay, so it sounds like a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah.
But also some potential problems. But how does all of this actually play out with jobs? I mean, a growing economy should mean more job opportunities.
That's what we all hope for. And that's what we'll look at next. We'll see which sectors are looking good and what that might mean for people's careers. So I think we're all wondering, how is all the stuff we've been talking about actually going to affect our job prospects?
Yeah, totally. A 5.2% growth target sounds impressive and all,
Right.
But will it actually lead to, real jobs for people?
Right. And the good news is, even with all the, global uncertainty, some sectors are looking really strong.
Okay, so which ones?
Manufacturing is definitely one to watch. Indonesia is putting a lot of effort into
Yeah.
renewable energy semiconductors, automotive parts,
So for someone looking for work, what does that mean? What kind of jobs are we talking about?
engineers, technicians, skilled laborers. As Indonesia tries to become a leader in these industries, it'll create more and more jobs, especially for people with those technical skills.
So good with your hands, good with tech, good time to be in manufacturing.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not just about, the traditional manufacturing. Remember all those renewable energy projects we talked about?
Yeah.
That's another sector that's really growing and creating a ton of new jobs.
I mean, solar panels, wind turbines, it feels like that's the future. What kind of jobs are we talking about there?
Everything from installing solar panels to maintaining wind farms.
Yeah.
There's a whole world of opportunity in green energy. And it's good for the planet, which is a plus.
Okay, so manufacturing and renewable energy are looking good. Any other sectors we should be paying attention to?
Oh, yeah. The services sector is also having a huge boom, especially with Indonesia's digital economy taking off. It seems like everyone's shopping online and using mobile wallets these days.
I know I am. What does that mean for jobs, though? Do we all need to learn how to code?
No, not at all. The great thing about the digital economy is it creates jobs for all sorts of skills. Think about it. Someone needs to build those e-commerce platforms. Someone needs to design them. Someone needs to market them. We're talking developers, designers, digital marketers. There's a wide range of jobs being created.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of potential.
Yeah.
But here's the tough question. Will the average Indonesian actually benefit from all this? Or will it just be certain sectors, certain people who see the rewards?
That's the key question, right? And it's something we have to think about carefully. Because even if there are a lot of new jobs, it doesn't mean everyone will benefit equally.
So what are the factors that determine whether or not this growth actually translates into a better life for people?
One big one is education and skills training. We need a workforce that's ready to fill these new jobs. If people don't have the right skills, those jobs might go unfilled. Or even worse, go to people from outside Indonesia.
So it's not just the government's responsibility to create jobs. People also need to invest in themselves and make sure they have the skills to compete.
Exactly. It's a two-way street. The government needs to invest in education and training programs that align with what businesses actually need. And individuals need to be proactive about upskilling themselves and staying ahead of the curve.
So let's say we have the skills, we're ready to work. Are there any other roadblocks we need to be aware of?
Well, we can't forget about those global uncertainties we talked about. They can definitely mess things up. If exports slow down, if inflation gets out of control, if those geopolitical tensions get worse, it could create a tough job market even with all this potential growth.
So it's not a sure thing.
Right, there are definitely risks.
So why is it so important to understand the whole picture?
Because when we understand both the opportunities and the challenges, we can make better decisions for ourselves, our families, our communities.
Okay, I get that. But I think the biggest question on everyone's mind is, will this 5.2% growth actually make a difference in our lives? Will we actually see more money, or is it just a number?
That's the million-dollar question. And that's what we're going to talk about next. We'll look at the optimistic scenario, the moderate scenario, and yet even the pessimistic scenario. And we'll see what each of those could mean for your wallet, your job, your future.
So we talked about the government's plans and the risks, and which jobs are looking good. But I think the question is, will hitting this 5.2% target actually, make a difference in our lives?
Yeah, it's the bottom line, right? Will we actually see more money? Will things get better? Or is this just a number for economists to talk about?
Right, exactly. So what are the, possible outcomes here?
Well, let's start with the optimistic one. Imagine everything goes perfectly to plan. The government's plan works. Indonesia hits that 5.2% growth. Maybe even goes beyond it.
Okay, I like where this is going. What would that look like for the average person?
You'd probably see a lot more jobs being created, especially in those sectors we talked about, manufacturing, renewable energy services. And with more competition for skilled workers, wages could start to rise, giving people more money to spend.
More jobs, higher wages. That's a good start. What about the cost of living, though? Would that stay under control?
That's the important part. If inflation stays stable, then those higher wages would actually mean a better life for people. You'd have more money to spend on what you need, maybe even some of the things you want.
It sounds almost too good to be true. Are there any downsides to this?
Well, even in the best case scenario, growing too quickly can sometimes have unintended consequences. We might see things like more inequality, where only certain people benefit from the growth, Or environmental problems if we don't grow sustainably.
Right, so even with a strong economy,
Yeah.
we have to be careful and make sure everyone benefits, not just a few. Okay, so that's the optimistic scenario. What about something more moderate? Like, what if things are okay but not amazing?
That's probably the most likely outcome, honestly. We might see some growth, but maybe not that 5.2% they're aiming for. In this case, there would still be new jobs, but maybe not as many, and wage increases might be smaller.
So some improvement, but not a huge change.
Right, and we'd still need to watch out for those global issues, like a strong U.S. dollar or rising import costs. Those could eat into any gains we make.
So even if things are okay, we still need to be prepared for some challenges. All right, let's talk about the scenario no one wants to think about. What if things go bad?
Well, in that case, growth could be much lower than expected. The job market might not grow much, and those global risks could really hurt Indonesia.
And what would that mean for people?
It could be really tough. It would be harder to find a job. Wages might not increase or even go down, and inflation could make everything more expensive. It would be a lot harder to make ends meet.
So even though there's a lot of potential for growth, there's also a chance things could go wrong.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to be aware of the risks, not just the potential rewards. When we understand what's going on, we can make better choices for ourselves, our families, our communities.
Absolutely. So where does that leave us?
Mhm.
Can Indonesia actually reach that growth target? And more importantly, will we actually benefit?
Those are the big questions, and there's no easy answer. But I think just by talking about this, by understanding how the economy works, we're all better prepared for the future, whatever it may hold.
I like that knowledge is power, right? I feel a lot more confident knowing what I know now.
Me too. And even if Indonesia does hit that 5.2%, we need to ask ourselves, is it sustainable? Is it inclusive? Are we taking care of the environment and making sure everyone benefits?
Those are important questions. So while we wait and see what happens, let's keep those in mind. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Indonesia's economy. We'll see you next time for another exploration of the things that matter most.